Welcome to the BamaInsider.com podcast, day 2 of SEC Media Day. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com alongside Tony Tsoukalis. We close out day 2 from Hoover, Alabama. Tony, you hanging in there?
Yeah, we're trucking right along. Tomorrow's Alabama, so I think we're all pretty excited about that.
Today on BamaInsider.com podcast, we will talk about what we heard and what we learned from Kirby Smart. We also will hit on Jim McElwain. Both were former assistants under Nick Saban at Alabama. And we lead off the program with talking about Georgia's Kirby Smart. I think the theme here, obviously, Tony, has been closing the gap on Alabama.
Right, that's been the theme for a lot of coaches. But, Georgia being one of them, they're a team that a lot of people are expecting to win the East or at least compete for the East this year. And they're kind of, I would say that they're the trendy pick to win the East probably, and I guess that means typically playing Alabama in the SEC championship game. So I think a lot of people want to know, where everyone else stacks up to Alabama, because Alabama's been the class of the SEC in recent years.
Let's play that clip right now of Kirby Smart talking about closing the gap on Alabama.
What's it going to take for the rest of the league to catch up?
That's a common question at this event, and I think the biggest thing is recruiting and development. A lot of people say it's one or the other. Do you recruit great players or do you develop great players? And when you do both, that's when you've got something special. And I think every team in this conference is trying to play catch up in regards to that. I think each one's getting closer, and we like to see that gap close through recruiting. But you can only do that through hard work and grinding. And that's what we continue to do in Athens.
That was Kirby Smart talking on closing the gap on Alabama. We also heard from Georgia running back Nick Chubb, who went along those similar lines, saying that Alabama's defense has been the toughest he's faced.
What a big contrast between maybe a Darius Geis from LSU that said that Alabama's scared of LSU. I think Chubb took a more humble approach. Two different running backs too. Chubb's a little bit more guarded with his words, where Geis likes to talk a little bit more. So it is just two different people off the field and two really good running backs. But I think when you look at Chubb, he realizes that Alabama's got a good team. I think he thinks he might have a chance to face him at the end of the season, so I don't think he really wants to poke the bear that much with any drastic comments.
Here's that clip from Chubb.
Probably Bama's the toughest defense, but Florida plays us very hard every year. No matter if they are highly rated or lowly rated, they come out and they beat us, so they're a great defense.
What makes Alabama's defense so tough to go against?
I don't know. I guess they just play hard, play very hard.
You talked about Alabama. They've won so many SEC games in a row. What do you think it's going to take for another team to kind of close the gap? I mean, what does it take, you think?
I don't know. Just you got to go out, you got to outplay them, and you got to do everything right. You can't have any mistakes. You can't give them anything. You have to just be on your A game and beat those guys. They're a very good team.
The last time Georgia and Alabama played was in 2015, with Alabama winning 38-10. In 2012, the two teams met in the SEC championship game, with Alabama winning 32-28. Moving on to Florida, and really almost similar themes, with Alabama last beating Florida 54-16 in the 2016 SEC championship game. Your thoughts, Tony?
I guess there's two ways to look at this from the Florida perspective. There's you've been to the SEC championship 2 straight years, and then there's also you've gotten blown out by Alabama the last 2 years in the SEC championship game. And so it's kind of, how close are they? Are they a team that's on the verge of returning to their 3rd straight SEC championship game, or are they a team that just recently lost 54-16 to the SEC champion? There's two ways to look at it. One is they're very far away, and one is they're close. I think among most Florida players and coaches, they think that they're close. They think that there were some mistakes made in that game, and that they can fix it and get to that championship game and then beat Alabama.
Here's that clip of Jim McElwain talking about closing the gap on Alabama.
Kirby and Butch were obviously asked the same question. You've seen it twice, so what does Florida need to do to close that gap with Alabama?
They've just done an outstanding job. I think closing the gap, as I go back to, I guess, the understanding here that each year is its own, and certain things happen that you don't have control over, and yet what you hope happens is you've taken care of a lot of the details along the way, that when something comes up you can still be successful. that's a great thing they've done in that program. And, you know, I don't know the gap itself. You know, I do understand this. They're right now at the top, and, you know, it's up to the rest of us to go get them.
That was Jim McElwain talking about closing the gap on Alabama. We also caught up with Marcel Harris, a defensive back from Florida, and he had some interesting comments about last year's SEC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously alluded to the fact that they made mistakes and that they, you know, I think he said that they had some people missing, and so there's a general thought among Florida players that that game does not really reflect their talent or, you know, their ability or frankly how close they are to Alabama. They feel a lot closer than 54-16, and I was able to ask him afterward, you know, if you do make a third straight SEC appearance, do you want to see Alabama? And he said, of course. So that's really interesting. You know, I think you might have expected him to say, you know, maybe I'd like to see someone else after facing Alabama twice. But no, I think they're probably rooting for Alabama to make it there because they have something they want to prove to Alabama that they can finally knock them off.
Here's that clip from Harris talking about last year's SEC championship game.
What do you remember from the Alabama game last season? This championship game?
The only thing I honestly remember is just taking an L. I never like losing a game like that in a big arena like that. SEC championship game, you always want to come out ahead, and it's one of the things that we had to learn. We had to finish the game out.
What makes their offense so explosive, I guess?
I mean, we had a great start. Our defense had a great start. We missed a lot of players, a lot of young players getting their first experience in the SEC championship game, in the championship game period. But we just have to learn how to finish. We got to learn to finish.
After seeing them 2 straight years, would you like to see them again in that game if you made it again?
Oh yeah, of course.
This is the BamaInsider.com podcast. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com, along with Tony Tsoukalas, our team writer, along with Andrew Bone. We make up the team here at the Alabama Rivals site. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Wherever you are on the internet, we've been bringing you coverage Monday and Tuesday, and tomorrow on Wednesday, July 12th, Alabama will be at Media Day. Tons of buzz. There's going to be tons of media here to hear Alabama coming off a 14-1 season. Nick Saban will be here, along with Calvin Ridley, Bradley Bozeman, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Tony, what should we expect? Give us a quick rundown of tomorrow.
It should be pretty interesting. I know we'll get to see, you know, Alabama's side. I think we've heard a lot about Alabama from other teams, and we'll get to see, you know, how they've progressed through the summer a little bit. We'll probably get to check on, you know, how the offense is looking, how workouts are looking. Probably get some updates on some of those younger players that came in. So it'll be interesting. There'll be a lot to talk about, a lot to find out. Of course, we're going to hear from Nick Saban as well, so that's always interesting. It should be a big day tomorrow.
Closing out day 2 from Hoover, Alabama. This is the BamaInsider.com podcast. SEC Media Days, we're still in the midst of it. This is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Alongside Tony Tsoukalas, you can subscribe to any of our past or future shows by simply finding us on iTunes or Google Play. Just search the BamaInsider.com podcast. On Wednesday, you got Alabama, and we'll have a great showcase of all our content. You can catch all of it, of course, at BamaInsider.com. Won't keep you too long today. Thanks for joining us on the BamaInsider.com podcast.